Intrigue, deceit, spies. It's been a very busy year for the Chinese spy agencies. 2021 has been a big year for catching out Chinese spies and collaborators and people who collude with the Chinese government and their spy agencies. We're going to focus on one big breaking case right now, and then I'm going to go through a whole list of other ones that we've seen through 2021. We're going to start out with Charles Lieber. Now, Charles Lieber might seem like a very unlikely candidate for somebody to work underhanded with the Chinese government, taking cash bribes and all sorts of other little things which we'll get into in a minute. But actually, he's the perfect candidate. Let me introduce you to something called the 1,000 Talents Program. This is something the Chinese government does in order to entice top talent from around the world to help build China's military, China's technology, and China's might. And of course, it makes sense. They target big professors, scientists, professionals in various fields around the world and try to entice them to come over and help build an institute in China, or help train Chinese personnel, or come over to China to live in China to do something or other to help the military or the technology or the economy or whatever the case. But it's out there. The thing is, it doesn't really work that way. Of course, they do end up snaring people like Charles Lieber, but what they really are after are professionals that are working in government organizations, big corporations like, say, for instance, Microsoft, or any big military organization, anything like that, where they can kind of have a mole in there so that that person can then funnel IP, data, technology, and that kind of thing back to China. The thing is, it's not illegal to be a part of the 1,000 Talents program, but it is illegal not to disclose that information. Because think about it this way. If there's a top secret program being worked on, and you get told, hey, we would like you to be a part of the team to work on this top secret, let's say submarine technology. Yeah, okay, we want you on the team. But you say, I'd love to be on the team. I am part of the Chinese 1,000 Talents program. Then they'll say, okay, well, sorry, you're not on the team, obviously, because anything that you work on here is going to end up in the hands of the Chinese government. So if you're part of the 1,000 Talents program and you get invited onto that top secret submarine project, and you don't disclose that and you go in there, that's where it becomes illegal. And that's why Charles Lieber has been caught out. You see, Charles Lieber is a brilliant man. He is one of the USA's top research chemists, and he deals in nanochemistry and all sorts of fascinating fields, and he is a brilliant man. But he doesn't have a brilliant conscience or brilliant morality, let's put it that way, because he is receiving massive grants from American taxpayers. He received a grant for $15 million over a number of years to do his research from the NIH. In other words, from American taxpayers. People like me, I pay tax in America, even though I'm not American, but you know, people, the average Joe who's working hard, pays money, it goes to him to do research, which is all well and good if it serves America. But in this case, it was not serving America, it was serving America and China at the same time. So Americans paying for China getting technology, in other words. This is obviously a massive conflict of interest. Now, what he was not telling the people who were approving these grants for his research was that he was part of the China 1,000 Talents program. Not only that, but China had offered him $1.5 million to set up a research institute within the Wuhan University of Technology, I believe it was. And on top of that, they would pay him $50,000 a month as a salary, plus $150,000 a year in just random spending money, plus they'd pay for his travel expenses, plane tickets, hotels, that kind of thing. Sound familiar? Anyway, the FBI cottoned onto this and they questioned him, and he denied all involvement, and he denied any involvement in the 1,000 Talents program, and he denied accepting money from the Chinese state, which of course was a lie. And that's what he's been found guilty of, lying to the federal government about his involvement. I mean, look, the guy was obviously dirty. He was accepting cash, big packages of cash from the Chinese government. He'd put it in his luggage, bring it over the border into America without declaring it. So in other words, he's cheating the IRS, which, having lived in America for a number of years now, I know is the worst thing you can do, because when it comes to paying taxes, you cannot escape that in America. And if you make even the slightest little mistake, you're in deep, deep trouble. So every American citizen knows, whatever you do, don't try to hide from the IRS, especially big brown paper packages full of cash that you're receiving from the Chinese government. He also hid the fact that he had a Chinese bank account, which they were paying into as well, which I think has around 200,000 US dollars in it as we speak still in China. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of parallels here. And just to break away from Charles Lieber for a minute, but just recently I spoke about some of these guys who work with and for the Chinese government, and they also have very similar modus operandi, asking to be paid in RMB rather than US dollars, asking to be fraudulently paid as friends and family from a Chinese state media organization in order to avoid the IRS, I believe. This is kind of the way it starts. Oh, and being paid for travel expenses to go around and do propaganda for the Chinese government. It starts small, and I'm pretty sure this is how Charles Lieber started as well. Just the small things, accepting freebies from the Chinese government to do a little bit of things here and there. And finally, getting on the payroll of the Chinese government and into a very uncomfortable position from which he cannot back out. So Charles Lieber pleaded not guilty, which is kind of ridiculous, considering that during his interview with the FBI, he denied receiving income from the Wuhan University or participating in the Chinese Thousand Talents program. But funny thing is, when the agents produced a series of documents, including contracts from 2011, 2012, to show him, he all of a sudden changed his tune to say like, oh, now that you bring it up, I do remember. That's pretty damning. Now, he hasn't been sentenced yet, but I do hope that this sends a strong message, and I hope he gets a pretty lengthy sentence and a harsh sentence, because we have to have a message out there that you cannot be doing this kind of thing, because he was doing things on behalf of the Chinese government. He was filing patents for them. He was helping with research. He was doing all sorts of things under the table, and it's not on. Taking $15 million of taxpayers' money to do research, which, of course, at the end of the day, is going to end up in the hands of the Chinese government because he's part of their Thousand Talents program and he's on payroll from them. This is the kind of thing that we don't want happening. This is the kind of thing that's just, it's not on, it's not correct. Charles Lieber aside, however, let's go through some of the bigger cases from 2021. Now, there's a long list. I'm not going to read them all out. I'm just going to go through the ones that I'm very familiar with. So, of course, we're going to start out with Meng Wanzhou. Now, Meng Wanzhou was arrested for a reason. She was sent back to China, but a lot of people think that this exonerated her in some way or the other. But that's not correct, because she actually admitted to misleading a global financial institution. And this, of course, was in order to bypass sanctions. Next, let's talk about Song Guozheng. Now, Song Guozheng was an Ohio rheumatology professor with strong ties to China. He is Chinese. But he also managed to defraud the NIH and the Ohio State University. Now, this is kind of interesting because he was arrested in Alaska. What he was trying to do is flee to China, and they caught him basically as he was about to board his flight. What he had with him, though, were 3 large bags, 1 small suitcase and a briefcase containing 2 laptops, 3 cell phones, several USB drives, several silver bars, expired Chinese passports for his family, deeds for property in China, and other items. Zheng pleaded guilty last November and admitted he lied on applications in order to use approximately $4.1 million in grants from the NIH to develop China's expertise in the areas of rheumatology and immunology. Again, this time we see an Ohio rheumatology professor that was working with the National Institute of Health again, and the Ohio State University, managed to defraud a hell of a lot of money from the taxpayer in order to fund research, which of course ended up in the hands of China. He was sentenced to prison. Links down below. In April 2022, a Dr. Xiaorong Yo, known as Sharon Yo, was convicted in Lansing, Michigan. Now, what she did was she stole some very important technology that has to do with the beverage industry. You know, BPA was being used to coat the inside of beverage cans, and BPA apparently helps keep the flavor and so on of the drink inside of the can. But there are potential health risks, so a new healthy BPA-free solution was created, and it cost around about $120 million to produce and develop and research this healthy coating for the inside of beverage cans. She was granted access to this secret while working for the Coca-Cola company in Atlanta, Georgia. And here's the thing, though. She stole the technology to set up a new BPA-free coating company in China. Now, her and her corporate partner received millions of dollars in Chinese government grants to support the new company. And she even received a Thousand Talents Plan award for her work in stealing this technology. February 3rd, a former University of Florida researcher was indicted in a scheme to defraud the National Institutes of Health. Now, Mr. Lin Yang got about 1.5 million US dollars in grants from the NIH, which was used to develop some kind of muscle imaging software, which of course he went to China and approached the Thousand Talents program and got them to set up his whole operation over there so he could transfer the technology over there. And in 2019, he fled to China and has yet to return to the United States. Of course, taking all the money and technology along with him. Once again, the NIH funding Chinese research. Honestly, this is a trend that I'm seeing all over the place. The NIH has been sending millions and millions, if not billions of dollars worth of taxpayers' money over to China in the form of research. They're always being defrauded. It seems almost as if they're part of this whole situation. How is it that they're so useless at checking who they are giving grant money to? Because if I look through this list, their name crops up over and over again, and it's always millions of dollars which is being defrauded, and it's always going to China. Never mind the whole gain of function thing with the COVID and the Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance and all of that stuff. I mean, what is with the National Institute of Health? I think they need to get some oversight, like some proper oversight. Anyway, moving on. January 20, 2021, an MIT professor indicted on charges relating to grant fraud. Once again, grant fraud. Mr. Gang Chen received over $19 million in various different federal grants, while at the same time working with the Chinese government and receiving even more money from them. Now, this is only part of a fairly long list of incidents that happened in 2021. Never mind 2020 and 2019 and 2018. But it's good to see that there's a bit of a focus on this, because this has kind of gone unchecked for far too long. And you know who loses at the end of the day? America. And I am talking about America here. It's in fact the world, because this is not just an American problem. They've got the same Thousand Talents program and the same kind of thing going on in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, any other country around the world that has some technological edge or some or other edge over China. They focus on that country, they send out the people with the bags of money, and they get the technology back, because there's lots of unscrupulous people, including leading professors like Charles Lieber, who are willing to sell their morals, sell their country down the river for a brown paper bag full of cash. Anyway, guys, unlike all these immoral spies and people conspiring with the Chinese government in order to defraud you and your country, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and I'll see you soon. Stay awesome.